What if the quietest boy in the room became the voice of a generation? Before the viral love story, before the breakup heard across Asia, there was just Both. A soft-spoken kid with a camera, a dream, and a heart too big to hide. His journey isn't loud, but it's unforgettable. Stay with us, because this isn't just a story about love. It's about how being gentle can start a revolution. In a sleepy town deep in the southern corner of Thailand, long before the headlines, the heartache, or the hope he would one day bring to millions, there was just one boy named Both. Born Nattapong Chinsaponsap, he grew up amid palm trees, gentle monsoon rains, and the steady rhythm of rural life. His home was modest but filled with warmth. His parents worked hard, instilling in him the values of humility, kindness, and respect. But even as a child, Both had something that made him different. A quietness, a gentleness, a kind of emotional sensitivity that didn't quite fit in with the world around him. From the beginning, it was clear that Both was different. While other kids climbed trees and played on the ground, he preferred quiet spaces. He would sit alone with his thoughts, drawing, daydreaming, watching the clouds change shape. He didn't talk much, but when he did, there was a quiet intelligence in his words. He was gentle, observant, and sensitive to the moods of those around him. He could sense sadness before it was expressed. He consoled before anyone asked. Teachers called him mature for his age. But really, he was just trying to understand the world in a way that made him feel safe. Growing up in a traditional Thai family meant learning the unspoken rules early on. Boys were expected to be strong, tough, stoic. Any sign of weakness was quietly questioned. Although his family never said it out loud, Both could feel the pressure. To be more direct, he had to be more assertive, he had to act like a boy. He tried, but pretending was never right. The more he tried to hide who he really was, the more invisible he became to himself. And yet, even in the face of that quiet erasure, he was always kind. He was always curious. He found joy in the smallest things. The sound of rain on the roof, the color of light through the window, the magic of a well-told story. That was where his refuge began, with stories. At night, after homework and chores, Both would retreat into other worlds. He was addicted to movies, TV series, cartoons, anything that brought him emotion and meaning. He didn't watch for the action or the fantasy. He watched for the truth. He sought out characters who made him feel like himself, even if they weren't meant to. A girl in a TV series hiding her secret. A lonely boy in a foreign film searches for connection. Somewhere in the fictional world, he finds pieces of himself reflected. As the years passed, Both began to dream, not just of enjoying stories, but of creating them. He wrote scripts in the margins of his notebooks. Imagined conversations on the school bus. He didn't know it yet, but these were the seeds of a future career and a future identity. He only knew that telling stories made him feel alive. It was the only place he didn't have to explain himself. But real life was harder. The school hallways echoed with whispers. He was too weak, too quiet, too different. And even though he never came out in public during his early years, people sensed something they didn't understand. And sometimes, they turned that confusion into cruelty. Both never fought back with words. He bore it silently, but not bitterly. That's what made him remarkable. Instead of being tough, he deepened. Instead of running from his vulnerability, he let it anchor him. What most people miss is that Both isn't lost. He's listening, absorbing, becoming. And then, a light bulb went off. A borrowed camera, a laptop, a YouTube account with barely any followers. It didn't look like much, but to Both, it was everything. It was a window, a mirror, a stage. When he first filmed himself, he wasn't trying to be famous. He was just trying to tell the truth in a way he could never say out loud. Little sketches, video diaries, honest thoughts wrapped in humor. They were simple, quiet, but real. And for the first time, strangers started commenting, "I feel the same way." That connection, the invisible thread between his story and the pain, joy, longing of others, was addictive. It was healing. Both had been quiet, but now people were listening. And what they heard was the voice of someone who had never really been allowed to speak. He didn't know it yet, But those first shaky videos were the beginning of something much bigger than him. They were the first steps on a journey that would one day reshape the way millions of people see love, weirdness, and tenderness, not as weaknesses, but as gifts. Who could have known this quiet boy from the South would one day define what love means for millions? And now that you've heard where his story begins, how did it make you feel? Did you see a part of yourself in him? Did his silence remind you of your own? When Both left his hometown to pursue higher education, he made no secret of his past and quietly walked the path toward his purpose in life. He enrolled in Silpakorn University, one of Thailand's most prestigious art schools, majoring in film and digital media. For a boy raised in a fictional world, this was more than just a major. It was a calling. He wasn't trying to be popular, he was trying to be heard. Bangkok was a shock to the system. The quiet trees and slow mornings were gone. Now all that remained were night buses, part-time jobs, and the constant buzz of a city that never stopped moving. Both worked hard to make ends meet, editing wedding videos, filming student projects, bartending part-time just to survive. His schedule was chaotic, sleep was often an afterthought, and ramen noodles became a regular meal. But even as his body was exhausted, his heart was bright. Every spare moment he had, he spent telling stories. And one night, with a used laptop and a borrowed camera from a classmate, he quietly uploaded his first YouTube video. It was simple, personal, just his thoughts, filmed in his tiny dorm room. But that video became the seed for something much bigger. It wasn't the production value that caught people's attention. It was the authenticity. It was the soft voice behind the camera that made viewers feel like he was talking to them, not at them. And slowly, the group of strangers became a small community, a place where people didn't just watch, they felt. And then, the moment that changed everything. It was a warm afternoon at a school festival, one of those colorful, bustling events filled with laughter, music, and familiar faces. Both, now a former student, had returned to visit his old school. Meanwhile, on stage, a student named Katsamona Namwirot, nicknamed New Year, was hosting the event as the MC. Dressed neatly, articulate, and confident, New Year had the crowd hooked. But for Both, it wasn't just his voice or stage presence. It was something different, something intimate. Like a moment in the universe, he chose not to shout, but to whisper, "Look, he's right there." And the funny thing is, New Year noticed him too. They didn't talk that day, but a glance was enough. That night, New Year found Both on Instagram and followed him. They both followed back. And just like that, two gentle guys with cameras and dreams, they started talking. Slowly at first, then endlessly. Direct messages turned into deep conversations, comments turned into confessions. And in just a few weeks, a quiet connection became undeniable. They didn't just discover each other, they recognized something familiar in each other. A reflection, a tenderness, a security. They officially started dating in 2012. It wasn't a dramatic reveal, no fireworks, no declarations, just sincerity, just heart. What's more, their families knew from the start, and what's more, they supported them. But there was one condition. At the time, New Year was 17, still in school, still growing up. So his parents, like Both's parents, made a simple request: keep the relationship light. Keep it light. And Both absolutely respects that. What blossomed between them wasn't rushed, it was careful, intentional, built not just on attraction, but on mutual respect and shared dreams. They were students, they were creators, and most of all, they felt safe with each other. In a world that often demanded performance, they found peace in their own presence, and that authenticity became their magic. Their relationship began with a shared passion for storytelling. Short films, vlogs, conversations about love, fear, identity. Their channels grew slowly, then suddenly. Viewers were drawn in not by the flashiness, but by the purity. These weren't performances, they were glimpses of something real. In a country where same-sex love is often hidden or ridiculed, Both and New Year have shown something rare: tenderness, stability, a love that doesn't flare up and then fade, it lasts. And for LGBTQ+ youth across Thailand and beyond, it has changed their lives. The comments speak for themselves. This is the first time I've seen love like this that's not shameful. You guys made me believe in slow love. My parents started accepting me because of your videos. They're not just creating content. They're quietly building a space where love can breathe, where queer young people can see themselves reflected not as a tragedy, but as a possibility. Both. The quiet boy who once wondered if he was too weak for the world is now half of a story that empowers tenderness, that reframes tenderness as strength. And the Earth, New Year, is the mirror that helps him shine. But what about you? Have you ever made eye contact with someone and felt the world shift, even just a little? Have you ever followed someone online and ended up finding a piece of yourself? If this story stirs something in your heart, we want to hear it. Leave your thoughts in the comments, because every love story starts somewhere. And this is just the beginning. When people look back at long-term relationships, they often ask, when did it become real? For Both and Earth, the answer wasn't a grand gesture. It was the quiet consistency that followed. After that first connection online, what grew between them wasn't instant fireworks. It was a slow, steady flame that never burned out. What began as late-night conversations slowly bloomed into something that felt like home. By the end of 2012, their bond had quietly solidified. Earth was still navigating high school life, while both juggled university and part-time work. But in between assignments and obligations, they chose each other. Not with drama, but with intention. There was no rush, no pressure, just a mutual understanding that what they had was rare. And so began a love that would last 12 years. For the public, it started later. But for both, it was years of building something away from the spotlight. They spoke in codes, they held hands in shadows, but it was always safe in their world. Over time, they emerged, slowly, then all at once. Fans began calling them Both New Year, a name that combined their hearts and lives. And suddenly, Both was no longer just a storyteller. He was one half of a symbol. Travel became their love language. From Japan to Hong Kong, from China to the UK. They explored the world hand in hand, documenting sunsets, coffees, and Disneyland visits like postcards from a dream. Both's minimalist style, white shirts, black cardigans, contrasted Earth's pastel tones and vibrant energy. Their outfits matched often, but never felt forced. They just looked like two people deeply in sync, dressing for the day and for each other. Both wasn't a loud person. He never chased attention. He worked behind the scenes, behind the camera, framing Earth with tenderness, letting the lens tell stories words couldn't. But when they decided to create together, their work became something else entirely. Short films like Right Person, Wrong Time, and The Sign weren't just scripts. They were fragments of truth. In 2021, Top Secret Together brought them to national attention. The show was praised not for performance, but for its authenticity. It was the first time Both and Earth kissed on screen, and for many, it was the first time they'd seen two Thai men love each other without shame. Both's strength was never loud. It was quiet dignity. He never claimed to be an activist, but through every frame he directed, every caption he posted, he became one. Without preaching, he showed what real, lasting queer love could look like. He gave it visibility, respect, and permanence. In a region where LGBTQ+ representation is still emerging, that matters. But more than the films or the fame, it was the small things that defined him. His camera lingering on Earth just a little longer than necessary, fixing a collar between takes, capturing the way Earth laughed, or the way they looked at each other when they thought no one else was watching. Both wasn't just documenting love, he was preserving it. The journey wasn't without its weight. As their popularity grew, so did the expectations. Every public post was scrutinized, every silence interpreted. But through it all, Both kept his focus, not on proving anything, but on protecting what they'd built. To the world, they were half Both New Year. To him, it was simply love, one worth guarding. 12 years is more than a relationship, it's a life. They grew together, matured together, healed together. Through school, career leaps, private struggles, and moments of triumph, they remained. And through it all, Both never stopped choosing Earth. Not for attention, not for image, but for love. And perhaps what set both apart was that he never tried to make it look perfect. He allowed the cracks to show, the pauses, the tired days, the realness. In a world so obsessed with curated love stories, both gave us something more honest: vulnerability. And from that vulnerability, he created beauty. So when we remember this love, we must also remember the man who held the camera, who stood behind the light, who never made himself the center, but made sure the story was seen. The man who believed in quiet devotion, who gave us 12 years of truth through laughter, travel, art, and presence. Do you still believe in love after 12 years? Because both, through everything, never stopped showing us how it's done. By the time the world realized Both Nattapong was gay, he didn't have to come out. He lived his life, in every frame, every story, every quiet moment shared with the earth. No viral posts, no dramatic announcements, no rainbow-colored PR. Because for Botha, being gay wasn't just a performance, it was simply a part of who he was. This quiet, unspoken courage became the most powerful statement. While many public figures struggle under pressure, calculating when, how, or even if they can live out their lives, Both gently refused to make his identity a headline. He just lived, and in doing so, he redefined what it meant to be seen. For more than a decade, fans have watched him see the earth from behind the lens, the way he celebrated their anniversaries without hiding, the way he made films that didn't just feature gay characters, but put them front and center in stories filled with tenderness, skepticism, joy, and hope. It wasn't just a show. It was a quiet revolution. His coming out, if you can call it that, was never a single moment. It was 1,000 small choices. The choice not to lie when asked about his partner. The choice to post an unedited photo of the earth on their anniversary. The choice to post a photo of two men cooking dinner together, or curling up on the couch, or holding hands in the middle of a crowded festival. These weren't flashy gestures. They were radical in their normality. When their love story was made public, the reactions came flooding in. Young people from Thailand, Vietnam, the Philippines, and elsewhere shared how Both and Earth had given them a new image. You helped me come out to my parents. You made me believe that our love was valid. For the first time, I saw myself in someone who wasn't a joke or a tragedy. But not all the voices were kind. In a culture where conservative norms still cast a shadow over life, there were critics. People who called their content inappropriate or too much. Trolls insisted they were setting a bad example. But Both never let that hate change his tone. He didn't defend himself, not because he didn't care, but because he knew his existence didn't need to be defended. He responded to ignorance with art. He faced cruelty with clarity. In interviews, when asked about his sexuality, Both never faltered. He smiled softly and spoke of love, of sincerity, of the beauty of living fearlessly. I don't want to be remembered as a gay filmmaker, he said. I just want to be someone who makes people feel seen. And that's exactly who he became. He used his growing platform to advocate for LGBTQ+ causes, not with performative hashtags, but with real action. He attended pride events. He spoke at conferences. He donated to mental health programs for gay people. He collaborated with young gay creatives trying to break into the film industry. He lent his name to projects that amplified voices often silenced in Thai media. He even co-directed a short film that captured the silent pain of coming out in a traditional family, which was later used in schools and counseling centers across Thailand. Throughout that time, Both never lost sight of his core mission, storytelling, not for attention, but for connection. His work with Earth continues to thrive. Their vlogs, films, and behind-the-scenes moments show a genuine relationship, not perfect, but built on trust and growing together. Through these stories, they give the next generation of LGBTQ+ youth something they rarely saw growing up: hope. Both doesn't conform to stereotypes. He doesn't chase clicks. He doesn't code his love to make it more acceptable. He has created a space in Thai media where same-sex love can be gentle, intimate, even mundane. And that's revolutionary. Because sometimes seeing two men folding laundry together is more radical than any pride parade. And gradually, his name has become more than just that of a filmmaker. It has become an icon. Today, Both is seen not only as a talented creator, but also as a mirror, reflecting the lives, dreams, and struggles of young gay people who once thought they were alone. For many, he is an unsung hero, a reminder that presence doesn't always resonate. Sometimes it's just a whisper. His legacy isn't built on viral moments, it's built on years of honesty, of showing up, of speaking the truth without apology. In a region where many still live in silence, Both's existence is an invitation. You can live and you can love out loud. He didn't just represent himself. He represented the possibility of a life not defined by fear, but by freedom. For more than a decade, Both Nattapong has been known as more than just a content creator or filmmaker. He was one half of a love story that millions of people followed like a fairy tale. His relationship with Earth Katsumonat Namurot became a symbol of hope, especially for LGBTQ+ youth across Asia. Together, they redefined same-sex love, lasting, inspiring, and deeply human. But in February 2025, that fairy tale ended, and the ripple effects spread far beyond Thailand. On the evening of February 15th, Earth posted a heartfelt message on Instagram that took fans completely by surprise. In a gentle yet heavy tone, he revealed that he and Both had gone their separate ways more than 2 months earlier. It wasn't a joint statement, it was a confession. Earth admitted to breaking a key agreement between them, citing other issues as contributing factors. He apologized to Both and the fans who had supported them throughout their 12-year journey. His final words, "I am completely at fault for this," were both brave and heartbreaking. The shockwaves were immediate. Fans across Southeast Asia reacted with disbelief, grief, and disappointment. The comment section was flooded with crying emojis, broken hearts, and long, mournful messages. Many couldn't understand how a newly engaged couple could break up so suddenly. Others expressed anger, not just at the end, but at what they saw as a betrayal. Speculation spiked when photos emerged of Earth studying abroad in London, often appearing affectionate with a new foreign friend. To some, it felt like he had been working through his emotions long before he announced the split. Throughout, Both remained calm. He didn't make a public fuss. He didn't post cryptic messages or subtle taunts. He didn't even offer a rebuttal. Instead, he maintained a quiet dignity. He thanked Earth for their years together and expressed gratitude to the fans who had stuck by them. His silence wasn't indifference, it was grace. It was the kind of strength that doesn't scream, but resonates. For Both, this wasn't just the end of a romantic relationship. It was the disintegration of a shared public identity that had been cultivated for more than a decade. From viral vlogs to heartfelt short films like Our Story, Signs, and Right Person, Wrong Time, the couple brought visibility and recognition to LGBTQ+ audiences who rarely saw themselves reflected in love stories that ended happily. Their work was more than just art, it was advocacy. In many ways, their breakup felt like the end of an era. But it wasn't the end of hope. Memories of their journey still live online. The smiles, the glances, the playful banter, the heartfelt conversations, they're still there. Fans continue to revisit those moments, not just for nostalgia, but as a form of healing. Those digital memories now serve as a reminder of what it once was, a love that blossomed openly, bravely, and beautifully in the spotlight. And while Earth's public apology only scratched the surface of his pain, Both's quiet suffering spoke volumes. He didn't let his bitterness cloud his next chapter. Instead, he focused on what he does best, telling meaningful stories. Since his split, he's continued to champion LGBTQ+ stories, donate his platform to LGBTQ+ causes, and support youth mental health initiatives. He's shown the world that heartbreak doesn't have to mean destruction. It can be a gateway to reinvention. The dignity with which Both weathered the storm became a lesson in emotional maturity. He didn't erase the past, he embraced it. He didn't weaponize the pain, he transformed it. And in doing so, he showed that endings, no matter how painful, can also be beginnings. He also provided something incredibly rare in the world of influencer culture, an example of how to separate personal truth from public spectacle. He allowed people to feel the pain, yes, but also witness the healing. And perhaps that's the real love story here. Not just the story he shared with the earth, but the story he continues to build with himself. 12 years is a long time. Enough time to grow together, to build dreams together, to weather storms together. And while their story didn't end with a wedding or a happily ever after, it did end with honesty, with responsibility, with love. Not the romantic kind, but the resilient kind. The kind of letting go with respect. Nattapong continues to move forward, not as one half of a celebrity couple, but as a whole person who has loved deeply, lost deeply, and still believes in beauty. He doesn't need a partner to complete his story. He is the story, because sometimes the most powerful love stories don't end forever, but they still change the world. In the months following the public breakup, many fans wondered, where would Both Nattapong go from here? After all, for over a decade, he had not only lived and loved in the public eye, but he had also created alongside the person he once considered his forever. The question lingered, could someone who gave so much of himself to a shared dream now find purpose walking alone? The answer came quietly and gracefully. Both didn't disappear. He didn't spiral or shut down. Instead, he did what he had always done best. He created. With the same quiet strength that had carried him through the most vulnerable years of his life, he began to rebuild. Not from ashes, but from wisdom. And though Earth was no longer beside him, both stood tall. His posture was different, a little heavier with memory, but no less proud. He focused on solo projects, short films that explored themes of resilience, heartbreak, healing. One particularly moving project portrayed a man learning to fall in love with solitude after losing someone he once believed would stay forever. Fans immediately saw the parallels, but the message was universal. This wasn't a story of bitterness. It was about the soft power of letting go. Both also continued his advocacy, working with LGBTQ+ organizations in Thailand and beyond. He spoke on panels about queer representation, mental health, and the emotional labor of being visible. But what made his presence so powerful wasn't the grandeur, it was the authenticity. He wasn't trying to be perfect, he was trying to be real. And in that space of honesty, he gave permission to others to do the same. There were moments when fans speculated about a new love, a possible chapter 2. But both kept those parts of his life private. If there was someone new, he chose not to center them in the public eye. At least, not yet. Maybe he was still healing. He had learned that some things bloom best when they're not on display. Either way, fans respected his silence, knowing that healing isn't linear, and that moving forward doesn't always mean moving on. Instead, he channeled his energy into something bigger than personal recovery. He began mentoring young creators, queer kids who grew up watching him and Earth and now wanted to tell their own stories. He reviewed scripts, offered production advice, even hosted small workshops. Slowly, his legacy shifted from one of visibility to one of stewardship. He wasn't just representing anymore, he was uplifting. And perhaps that's the most powerful transformation of all. Because even without Earth by his side, Both never stopped walking with pride. He never stopped shining. He never once allowed the heartbreak to harden him, or the public scrutiny to break him. He carried the lessons of his love forward, not as scars but as stars, markers of a life lived bravely, out loud, and with tenderness. His fans remained loyal, not because he was flawless, but because he was honest. Not because he gave them a happy ending, but because he gave them something real. A love story that was imperfect, but full of grace. A breakup that was painful, but mature. A man who kept choosing to show up, not for applause, but for purpose. And today, Both's name means more than just the half of a famous couple. It means strength, it means endurance. It means staying soft in a world that wants you to be hard. It means telling stories that matter. And for every queer youth who's afraid they won't be loved. Both's story whispers, you will be. And even if the love doesn't last forever, that doesn't make it any less true. Because real love, whether romantic, platonic, or self-love, leaves something behind. It It builds people, it builds cultures, it builds bridges. And that's what Both has done. Brick by brick, moment by moment, video by video, he built something that will outlive the relationship itself. He built a movement. Even without Earth by his side, Both continues to walk with pride, with grace, and with love. Because some people are born not to fit in, but to shine. And what about you? How do you see Both now? After all the love, the loss, and the quiet strength he's shown. What did their 12-year story mean to you? Did it break your heart or help you believe in love, even if it doesn't last forever? Share your feelings below. We're reading every word because some stories live on in all of us. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the world of Both Nattapong. More than a dentist, more than a filmmaker, he reminds us that healing doesn't always have to be loud. Sometimes it's quiet, peaceful, and full of emotion. If his story touches you, let us know in the comments. What inspired you the most? We'd love to hear your thoughts. And this is just the beginning.